Okay, there we go. All right, so this is our second lesson of the series where we're looking at music this term. So we started last week by doing, as we normally do, by doing some drawing, and we used a grid system to draw brass instruments, to look at pencil drawing skills and also to look at drawing accurately. So we used a grid and things like that as well. I also did a freehand drawing in pencil as well, which was a lot looser than using a grid. But with the grid, you can really get into learning about all the shapes and so forth. And also looking at blending with pencils, but layering the graphite shading on top of each other. And using a blending stick or a putty rubber as well to take out highlights and things. So really kind of, really drilling down on some of the shading techniques. So this week, I was inspired by some of the artists that we looked at when we did the art history bit last week. But I've found another artist, an artist that a couple of people mentioned in the classes that kind of fits in quite nicely with what we're going to be looking at today. So we'll go straight over to the wall now and to the art studio wall, and we'll have a look at what I've got there. Right, so you'll remember me drawing away last week. I was drawing this lovely trumpet just here, and a few people have said, I thought that would be an easier one because it's nice and clear and everything, and it is to a degree. And then once you get into the middle there's quite a lot of detail to look at. So one of the things that is important when you're drawing is to look at not just the shapes of the object, but the shapes in between the object, the negative shapes. And that helped me when it came to drawing my freehand picture, which I've been working on a little bit as well today. So I'll just take that one down and we'll have a look at one of the artists that I mentioned last week, which was Paul Klee. This is a painting. I can't remember the name of it now. I think it was called Rhythm or something like that. But it was painted in 1921, and it's got this kind of sense of movement and repetition, almost like you would be listening to a piece of music. So this piece has inspired me to a degree with what we're going to be doing today with the drawings that you've been making. So I'll show you that in a few minutes. But as I mentioned in my email, when I sent you out the code to come to the lesson, is that if you could bring a piece of tracing paper along, that would be absolutely superb in order to do the work that we're going to do today. All right, so now the next artist that I've got for us to look at is called Susanne Clarke. And Susanne Clarke does a lot of overlapping imagery with these really rich, harmonious colours. So let's see if I can bring one of those up here. Oh, there it is. It's over there. Right, hold on. Bring it across. There it is. So Susanne Clarke makes these really beautiful paintings. So we'll have a quick look at this one before I show you the other ones. So we've got these nice blues in the background, blues and like purpley bits in there. And then the detail of the musical instrument has been painted using an opposite colour to make it sort of pop out of the background a little bit. But you've got all these kind of overlapping shapes, which reminded me a bit of the Paul Klee that we've been looking at, or Paul Klee. So I've taken a bit of inspiration from that today, which is why I've asked you to bring along a little bit of tracing paper. All right, so we'll have a look at another one, a quite similar one actually. Just here, I didn't realise it was a similar one. See if I can pick that up. Hang on, got it. Right, there you go. So a similar sort of idea with this one. There are lots and lots of different designs. Now, when I first looked at it, I thought, that's probably watercolour. But having looked on the internet and done a little tiny bit more background information, I found out that it was acrylic, and the artist is from downtown Toronto in Canada as well. So just a little extra fact there. But you can see in the background here, is quite interesting, is the shape of the instrument in the background has been repeated in the background as well. So if you see the edge of it going around, you can see it's been repeated behind there as well. And you do have extra lines and things like that, but you'll see what I mean in a few minutes when we have a look at another one. So the last one I've got here, and there are loads of these if you're interested in the artist that you can look at. I'll just see if I can bring it to the top so that I can put it in front of the others. So again, some really lovely rich colours where the paint has been layered over the top of each other and built up to create this lovely rich effect, which has a lot of atmosphere to it as well. I can imagine this picture being composed or inspired by a concert of jazz music or whatever in a nighttime sort of venue or something like that, because of these lovely purples and blues, and then the lights perhaps reflecting on the brass of the instruments and so forth. So a really beautiful approach to working, which took me from Paul Klee into Susanne Clarke. So what we're going to do is today we're going to be tracing an outline of your drawing. So you're going to take your drawing, get a piece of tracing paper, make an outline of it, and then we're going to repeat that instrument into the background of your picture. Okay, so I'm going to show you that in just a second, but I'm going to show you what I've done to the freehand drawing, and maybe just do a touch more so you can get an idea about that. And then I'll show you what we'll be doing next today or this evening. So we go over to here. Hopefully my camera's on. Yay, camera's on. That's good. Right. Hopefully you can see this all right. It's a bit difficult because I often have this with pencil drawings, is they're quite reflective because the graphite picks up the light on the camera, so you can see how it kind of changes here. But you can, if I just tilt it slightly, you can see what I mean. So we've got, when I was drawing this, as I said earlier, I was looking particularly at these negative shapes. That's the shapes in between the pipes and things on here. And that helped me a little bit when it came to working out where everything was. And I did have to rub things out. I did make mistakes as I went along. That's perfectly normal. All right. Now, what I've done with this is I've added also, because I decided I was going to just try out a bit of watercolour over the top of this pencil drawing to test it out. But I did know that I wanted some areas to stay white as opposed to being completely coloured, like up here. So I've used a clear candle wax here, and I've just been drawing around some of the areas that I wanted to keep like the white of the paper, to represent the highlights and so forth. So I've drawn quite a few on here already. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take my watercolour set. So I've got these Winsor & Newton watercolours here, which I think I actually won I won as a prize some time ago, and I've used occasionally in these classes since. So we've got I've got a round brush here. I've got this really nice set of brushes that I got. I think they weren't expensive at all. They were only about £10 or something, but it's quite a nice little set really. So I've got a whole range of brushes there. I've got this round brush here. So this says number 16 on it, round, but I don't know what if that's a standard size or anything like that. So with this, all I did was I mixed up a little bit of the colour I wanted to start with, and I'm keeping it limited in colours, so which is what I often do, so that colours don't become overwhelming and create a problem in that there's too much colour and you don't know what to do next. So I generally use a little bit of blue on this one anyway, to start with, and then brush over the top, and you'll see that the wax crayon, I've got quite a lot in some, or wax, candle wax, resists quite a lot because there's quite a lot of highlights on here that I decided to keep. Now the thing about the watercolours that we're going to do tonight is once you put a colour down, don't feel like, okay, I've done that. You know, you can go back in with other colours over the top, either when it's drier or while it's still wet. So as you can see, I'm being quite loose with this. I'm just applying the colour over the top of my drawing, and it's working quite nicely. And then what I've also done in the background is I decided I wanted the background to be like a sort of a pinky purpley sort of colour, so I've been applying that. Now the thing to do as well is to use the water to help the paint or the colour move around. So if you and you'll see what I do in a minute on the next one, if you put water down first, you can actually take advantage of that, and the paint will kind of do its own thing and look quite natural and things rather than too tight. So there we go. And I think this morning I added some nice red in there as well, so I'm going to put a little bit of red in there too. And I also use some green on some areas because I like how the green and the blue work together on the instrument. So it's not a natural looking colour for one of these things, but it is quite a lot of fun to experiment with colour and how it feels when it's applied to this subject matter. Okay, so good fun. If your drawings are quite dark shaded, you'll find it works quite well when you add it on top, when you add the colour on top. So this is the one I've done earlier, or you saw me drawing last week. So I drew this trumpet in the lesson, and we used a grid, if you remember. We used a grid to draw it accurately. Now, what I then decided to do was, having looked at this artwork that I've just been showing you, is to make a tracing of it. Now, not all of the details, literally just a silhouette of the trumpet. So when, just a reminder really, because most of you will know, is that when you trace out something, if you want the tracing to be the same way around on the paper, then what you need to do is, once you've gone around the outlines on the tracing paper, you need to flip it over, and not on top of your drawing, but go around the tracing paper again, so that the graphite is on that side. And then when you flip it over, you can then go over the shape and draw it in. And then it should just about, or enough, appear just enough for you to be able to see it like that. All right. So now when I traced this out, what I wanted here was literally to have these bits repeated, and some of the, I don't know what you call them, buttons repeated here. And not too much of the complicated stuff. So I've avoided that when I was tracing it. And I've just kept to some of the important bits, the pipes. But I've kind of made the trumpet do this kind of fanning sort of effect on here to make it look like it's kind of moving or being played in some way. And that harks back to the Paul Klee stuff we've been looking at, and the Susanne Clarke work as well. All right, and then once you've done that, you just go around it a little bit. Don't go over it heavily because you don't need to. And then you can start adding some colour to it, which is the fun bit. So if I zoom in, what I've tried to do is make the watercolour look kind of not blotchy, but you know, like watercolor, watery, if you like. So I've put water down first of all before adding any color, as I mentioned earlier. I'm just going to move this around and upside down so we can see. So I just literally paint in some water, and I'm going to tone this down. And as I mentioned earlier, you can keep layering the colour until you get it nice and rich. I'd really like to paint it in acrylic as well at some point, but at the moment I thought it'd be fun to try watercolour. So I've got like a wet surface just here now, and then what I'm going to do is start adding some what are you going to go for, the green and the blue on here. So start painting along the edges, and the other thing I was thinking of is to make one area like darker or with one colour on it, and then fade it out as it comes across. So put your colour down and then apply just water again, and you'll see it kind of start to do its own thing. Just spread across the paper. I can't see it very well, it's reflecting. There we go. So it starts to blend and bleed, if you like. And then I used a bit of yellow on the other side here. And again, kind of let the colour do its own thing and blend in a little bit. So that was just obviously one layer of colour just there, but you don't have to stop there at all. You can keep going. So if I go over this bit here, you can see there's like these blotches and things, which I did on purpose. I used a little bit of just plain water on top of a wet surface of paint, and then you get these nice kind of textures and stuff starting coming. So it's quite experimental in that respect. I can't get any closer than that, but let's just try, because I've been doing again this pinky sort of purpley colour down here. So I'm not wetting the paper first this time, I'm just going to put it on top and build up that area colour. I made I don't know if I've got around to it yet, but I probably will add a little bit of colour onto the trumpet itself as well. But I'm going to do the background before I do that. So here we go. And then I may just let that dry for a while and then come back and do some more a bit later as well. And again, if you want to add, if you're going to paint your musical instrument, of course you could use the candle wax to ensure, or wax like a white wax crayon, to ensure that you keep those areas white when you start to add the colour on top. So that's what we're doing. We're creating a sense of movement and energy within our drawings that we did last week. Now, a few people mentioned as well that I've just done this, really loved it. I'm really pleased with this drawing. I don't want to paint it. So the option is, of course, that you could draw a new one if you wanted to. You could trace the outline of this and create a design without drawing on the original. So in other words, get your tracing paper, trace the outline of it, and go to a new piece of paper and experiment with these ideas. Or, of course, you could, if you got the facility to do that, you could photocopy your piece onto a piece of paper, and then, which is what we do when I'm working at school, is a student's really proud of what they're doing and they don't want to necessarily paint over it because they want to keep it. You do a photocopy so you can work back into it on the photocopy itself rather than on the original. All right, so that's what we're going to try out this evening. So let's give it a go. So if anyone's got any questions about any of what I've just said, then please ask away. All right, so you'll see now that for the rest of this lesson, generally, I'm applying lots and lots of layers of watercolour over the top of each other. So as you can see here, I'm adding some warmer colours back over the top of the orangey yellow, and just painting things in a sense. But what I do in between that is I leave those areas to dry, or for the water to soak into the paper, so it's dry enough then to apply another layer on top. Now during the process of this, you'll see me shortly, I think, put an example of Susanne Clarke's work on the screen. So I do decide to darken down the whole thing in order to help the trumpet stand out. I don't quite get the trumpet to pop as much as I'd like to during this session, but I do kind of start to build up and exaggerate a lot of the tonal values against the trumpet and so forth. But it's very enjoyable, of course, to be able to layer these colours and see what kind of results you end up with. So one of the things I do shortly is I start I start applying some yellow. There we go, some yellow over the purple, which gives quite a nice sort of translucent, sort of browny, sort of olive green colour over the purple there. And in that corner at the top there, I just added some, I think it was a brown, into that section. And you'll see me doing that a little bit later on, because I decide I want to darken down all of this area. You'll see in Susanne Clarke's work that she's got these really deep shadowy areas. I don't get as far as that this evening, but I do start to sort of explore this. The difference, of course, is as well that Susanne Clarke does use acrylic paint, which is one of my favourite materials equipment to paint with. But I just wanted to try something with everyone a little bit different to what we would normally do. So we're just having a go with watercolour. So the nice thing about that is that we do have these lovely translucent layers, and we can build the layers of colour up, as I've said already, to make much richer colour schemes, or really rich colour schemes in the work. So look, you can see I'm using now a nice brown over the top to deepen the colours a little bit more, give it a little bit more depth and create shadow and layers to these shapes as well. So I've been layering colours on for a little while now. One of the other things I did or do with the trumpet here is I use a little bit of candle wax over the surface of the trumpet. And the reason I've done that for is because when I'm doing as I'm doing now, which is add this lovely strong yellow over the top of the trumpet, I'm actually creating a wax resist effect. So basically the wax crayon resists the watercolour as I paint it onto the surface. So a lot of the white of the paper or of the drawing is preserved. So we still have this kind of shiny effect within the drawing itself as well. And it worked reasonably well, I think. So we've got a pencil drawing with the watercolour and wax resist. I just use a normal candle wax to create that effect in the picture as well. Now what I do next is I grab hold of some watercolour pencils because I decided that I wanted to add some heavier, sort of finer marks and shadow into the picture. So I've used the colour pencils to help me do that, and you can see that I'm adding the pencil back over the top to create that sense of depth. So, and this was just towards the end of the lesson I started to do this, to push it a little bit further. Still lots of work to do, I would say, but it's still a lot of fun exploring this sense of movement in the musical instruments, the shininess of the trumpet, and the layering of colours. So we've got a lot of harmonious colours with the purples in here and the blues, and obviously the greens as well. But then there's this little bit of a shock of yellow running through the image, which creates the contrast and the energy within the image, hopefully, and a bit of this sense of atmosphere and music as well. So a lovely experimental exercise this evening. I hope you have fun doing it. Please post your examples so we can have a look and share and everything. If you're in the art class, post yours on Facebook, because we'd love to see those, of course. All right, so have a wonderful evening, and don't forget, we're not on next week, but we're on the week after. So I think it's the 9th of May we're back. Have a wonderful week and see you soon. Bye, 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 bye.